I cultivated a relationship with Martin, and it paid off.
Stop humiliating me in front of everyone.
What would you do if legal papers landed on your doorstep the morning after your best career move for your husband? How far is too far when you're convinced that only you know what's best for your marriage? I never thought my plan would end in court until my husband showed me exactly how wrong I was. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The restaurant's ambient lighting cast a golden glow across the white tablecloth as I adjusted my black dress for the third time. This was it, the moment I'd been planning for weeks. Evan sat across from me, fidgeting with his napkin, completely oblivious to the opportunity I was about to create for him. "Aurelia, you look stunning tonight," Martin Calloway said as he approached our table. At 51, my husband's boss carried himself with the confidence that came from 20 years of running a successful architecture firm. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, and his expensive suit fit him like it was tailored yesterday, which it probably was. "Martin, thank you so much for joining us," I purred, extending my hand longer than necessary. "I've been telling Evan how important it is for him to spend more time with the decision-makers at the firm." Evan shifted uncomfortably. "Aurelia, I'm sure Martin doesn't want to talk shop during dinner." "Nonsense," I laughed, placing my hand on Martin's arm as he sat down. "Successful people are always networking, aren't they, Martin?" Martin's eyes lingered on my face before he smiled. "Your wife has excellent instincts, Evan. In this business, relationships matter as much as talent." Throughout dinner, I made sure to dominate the conversation. Every time Evan tried to speak, I'd interrupt with a better story or redirect Martin's attention back to me. I laughed at Martin's jokes, leaned in when he spoke, and made sure my wedding ring caught the light whenever I gestured. "You know, Evan's far too modest about his work," I said, running my finger along the rim of my wineglass. "The residential project he just finished. The clients were raving about his innovative use of space. But he'd never tell you that himself." Evan's jaw tightened. "Aurelia, it's true though, isn't it, honey?" I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You're always saying the work should speak for itself, but sometimes people need a little reminder of what they have right in front of them." Martin nodded thoughtfully. "Aurelia's right. Talent without visibility is just wasted potential." As the evening progressed, I could feel Martin's interest shifting from professional courtesy to something more personal. When I excused myself to the restroom, I made sure to walk slowly past his chair, letting my perfume linger in the air. When I returned, both men stood, but Martin was the one who pulled out my chair. His hand brushed my shoulder as I sat down, and I didn't pull away. "So, Aurelia," Martin said, "what's your background? Evan's never mentioned what you do." "I'm an office administrator at a medical practice," I replied, then quickly added, "but I've always been fascinated by architecture. There's something so powerful about creating spaces that shape how people live and work." "That's a beautiful way to put it," Martin said, his voice dropping slightly. "Most people don't understand the psychology behind good design." Evan cleared his throat. "We should probably get going soon." "The babysitter—" "Oh, Lila's fine," I waved dismissively. "She's 8 now, practically takes care of herself. Besides, when's the last time we had such stimulating conversation?" Martin chuckled. "Your wife has excellent taste, Evan. You're a lucky man." "I know," Evan said quietly, but there was something cold in his voice that I chose to ignore. When the check came, Martin insisted on paying. "Consider it a company dinner," he said with a wink that was clearly meant for me. Outside the restaurant, Martin offered, "Aurelia, I could give you a ride home if you'd like. I'm heading in that direction anyway, and it would save Evan the trip back to get you." I saw Evan's hesitation, but this was exactly what I'd been hoping for. "That's so thoughtful of you, Martin. Evan, you could pick up Lila and I'll be home shortly." "Aurelia, I think we should go together. Don't be silly, I interrupted. It's just business networking. Isn't that what you're always saying you need more of? Evan's phone buzzed. I caught a glimpse of a text from his brother Joel. Dude, that dinner looked weird on your story. Everything okay? I pretended not to see it as I kissed Evan's cheek. I'll see you at home, honey. Don't wait up if I'm late. You know how these business conversations can go. As I slipped into Martin's BMW, I felt a thrill of satisfaction. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Evan would thank me later when he got that promotion he deserved, but was too timid to pursue himself. Martin started the engine, and I noticed him glance at me in a way that had nothing to do with business. Perfect. Sometimes a woman had to do what a woman had to do to help her family get ahead. So, Martin said as we pulled into traffic, tell me more about this fascination with architecture. 3 weeks after the dinner, I found myself standing in the lobby of Evan's office building, checking my reflection in the glass doors. I'd told Evan I was running errands, but really, I was here for my second career consultation with Martin. The first meeting had been innocent enough, coffee in Martin's office while Evan was at a site visit. We'd talked about the firm's upcoming projects, and I'd made sure to mention how underutilized Evan was. Martin had been receptive, even suggesting we continue the conversation sometime. Mrs. Fenwick, the receptionist smiled at me. Mr. Calloway is expecting you. I signed the visitor log, noting the time. 2:30 p.m. Evan thought I was at the grocery store. Martin's corner office was impressive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, architectural awards lining the walls, and a leather seating area that screamed success. He stood when I entered, and I noticed he'd loosened his tie since our phone call an hour earlier. Aurelia, thank you for coming in. I've been thinking about our conversation. About Evan's career trajectory. I settled into the chair across from his desk, crossing my legs deliberately. Among other things, his eyes followed the movement. You mentioned he's been passed over for the senior associate position twice now. It's frustrating, I sighed, leaning forward slightly. He has the talent, the dedication, the vision, but he's too humble to advocate for himself. And that's where you come in? Someone has to look out for his interests. I paused, meeting his gaze directly. I'm very protective of the people I care about, Martin. Very committed to their success. The subtext hung in the air between us. Martin walked around his desk, perching on the edge just a few feet from my chair. I appreciate loyalty, he said. It's a rare quality these days. Our conversation lasted an hour, but only the first 10 minutes were about Evan. The rest was Martin telling me about his wife's charity work that kept her busy, his lonely evenings in this office, and how refreshing it was to talk to someone who understood ambition. When I left, he walked me to the elevator. Same time next week, he asked. I'll make it work, I promised. That evening, Evan was waiting when I got home, 2 hours later than expected. Where have you been? I called the grocery store. They said you left hours ago. I set down the single bag of items I'd grabbed on my way home. I ran into Sarah from book club. You know how she talks. The lie came easily. We ended up having coffee. For 3 hours? Oh, Evan, don't be paranoid. I'm allowed to have a social life. I kissed his cheek, noting the suspicious look in his eyes. Besides, I'm doing this for you. Doing what for me? Networking, building relationships, the things you're too modest to do yourself. He frowned. What are you talking about? Nothing specific, I said airily. Just keeping my ears open for opportunities. The next week, I was back in Martin's office. This time, he'd ordered coffee from the expensive place down the street, and there were pastries arranged on a plate. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, I said, though I was pleased by the effort. It's no trouble. I find myself looking forward to our conversations. This meeting lasted 90 minutes. Martin told me about his college days, his first marriage that ended in divorce, and how his current wife didn't understand the demands of his career. I listened sympathetically, occasionally touching his arm when he seemed particularly vulnerable. "You're easy to talk to," he said as I prepared to leave. "I'm a good listener," I replied, "especially when it comes to people I want to understand better." At home, Evan was helping Lila with homework when I arrived. "Mummy, where were you?" Lila asked without looking up from her math worksheet. "Running errands, sweetheart." "You're always running errands now," she said matter-of-factly. Evan looked up from the worksheet. "She's right. You've been out a lot lately." "I'm trying to be more social. Isn't that what you wanted? You're always saying I should get out more." "I meant with friends, not—" He stopped himself. "Not what?" "Nothing. Forget it." But I could see the wheels turning in his head. That weekend, his mother, Elaine, called. "Aurelia, dear, Evan mentioned you've been very busy lately." "Just trying to expand my horizons," I said carefully. "Well, that's wonderful, though I hope you're not neglecting family time." "Lila mentioned you've missed several dinners this week." Lila exaggerates. "Does she?" Elaine's voice carried that particular tone that mothers-in-law perfected, because she seemed quite specific about which nights. After I hung up, I found Evan in our bedroom, holding one of my scarves. "This smells different," he said quietly. "Different how?" "Like cologne. Expensive cologne." My heart skipped, but I forced a laugh. "Evan, you're being ridiculous. It's probably from the department store." I walked through the fragrance section. He studied my face for a long moment, then carefully folded the scarf and placed it back in my drawer. But I noticed him take a photo of it first with his phone. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," he said, but his voice was cold. "Just documenting things." "Documenting what things?" "Changes," he said simply. "I'm starting to notice a lot of changes." That night, as Evan slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Martin's invitation to continue our next conversation over dinner. At a restaurant across town, just the two of us. I was helping Evan's career, I told myself. Everything I was doing was for our family's future. If Evan was too naive to understand that sometimes you had to play the game to win, that was his limitation, not mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. "Looking forward to tomorrow evening. I have some exciting ideas to discuss." I smiled in the darkness and typed back, "Me too. I'm very interested in exploring new opportunities." The restaurant Martin chose was intimate, dim lighting, secluded booths, and far enough from our neighborhood that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I'd told Evan I was having dinner with my old college roommate, who was supposedly in town for one night only. "You look incredible," Martin said as I slid into the booth across from him. He'd already ordered wine, something expensive that I'd never heard of. "Thank you. I wanted to look nice for our business dinner." I emphasized the last two words with a smile that suggested anything but business. "About that," Martin leaned forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I think we both know this has moved beyond professional consultation." My pulse quickened. This was the moment I'd been building toward for weeks. "Has it?" "Aurelia, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first dinner. The way you carry yourself, your intelligence, your dedication to getting what you want." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "I find it incredibly attractive." I didn't pull away. "And what do you think I want, Martin?" "The same thing I do, to explore this connection between us." The wine made me bold. "And what about Evan? What about your wife?" "What they don't know won't hurt them. Besides," he squeezed my hand, "you said yourself that Evan doesn't appreciate what he has. Maybe it's time someone did." After dinner, Martin suggested we go to his house. "Linda's in Chicago for her sister's wedding. She won't be back until Sunday." I knew I was crossing a line I could never uncross, but the thrill of it, the power I felt in that moment, was intoxicating. "Just for a little while," I said. Martin's house was everything I'd expected. Modern, expensive, professionally decorated. We had another drink in his living room, and when he kissed me, I kissed him back. This will be good for Evan too, I whispered against his lips. You'll see his value more clearly now. Whatever you need to tell yourself, Martin murmured, but he was already leading me toward the stairs. I got home at midnight. Evan was waiting in the kitchen, still dressed. How was dinner with Rebecca? He asked without looking up from his laptop. Fine. Good to catch up. I busied myself getting a glass of water, hoping he wouldn't notice my smudged lipstick or the fact that my dress was slightly wrinkled. Funny thing, Evan said conversationally. I called Rebecca's hotel to see if you wanted me to pick you up. They said no one by that name was registered. My blood went cold, but I forced a laugh. Oh, she ended up staying with her cousin instead. Last-minute change of plans. Her cousin. Yes, her cousin Sarah, in Westfield. Rebecca's cousin Sarah in Westfield. Evan was typing something on his laptop. The same Rebecca who posted on Facebook 2 hours ago from her apartment in Denver, talking about how she never travels anymore because of her new baby. I felt the room spin slightly. Maybe I got confused. It might have been a different friend. Which friend, Aurelia? Does it matter? Why are you interrogating me like I'm a criminal? Because you're lying to me. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. And I want to know why my wife is lying about where she spends her evenings. I'm not lying, You're lying. He closed the laptop and looked at me directly. The question is what else you're lying about. I decided to go on the offense. This is exactly why I don't tell you everything, Evan. You turn everything into some kind of inquisition. I'm trying to build a social life, make connections that could help our family, and you act like I'm committing a crime. What kind of connections? Professional ones, social ones, the kind you're too introverted to make yourself. With who? I paused just a beat too long. Various people. Various people. He nodded slowly. Like Martin Calloway. My heart hammered against my ribs. What about Martin? The security guard at your office building mentioned you've been visiting there regularly. Funny thing is, you never mentioned these visits to me. I was trying to help your career. I thought if I could get Martin to see your potential, by lying to me about it, by handling it myself because you're too proud to do what needs to be done. The words came out louder than I intended. You've been passed over twice, Evan. Twice. And you just accept it like some kind of martyr. Well, I'm not going to watch my family struggle because you're too noble to play the game. What game, Aurelia? What exactly have you been doing? I realized I was on dangerous ground. Networking, advocating for you, showing Martin that the Fenwick family is worth investing in. By meeting with him secretly. By building a relationship with him. By making him see that you come from a family that understands ambition and isn't afraid to pursue it. Evan stared at me for a long moment. You're having an affair with him. That's ridiculous. Are you sleeping with my boss, Aurelia? How can you even ask me that? Because you're acting like someone who's sleeping with my boss. I forced tears into my eyes. I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like that. After everything I've done, everything I'm trying to do for us, this is how you repay me, with paranoid accusations. But Evan didn't comfort me like he usually did when I cried. Instead, he just watched me with those steady brown eyes that seemed to see right through me. I'm going to bed, he said finally. In the guest room. Evan, please. I need some space to think. After he left, I sat alone in our kitchen, my hands shaking as I poured another glass of wine. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. Can't wait to see you again, same time Thursday. I typed back, yes, but we need to be more careful. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. As I headed upstairs, I passed the guest room where I could see light under the door. Evan was still awake, probably lying there putting pieces together. But he didn't understand what I was sacrificing for him, for our family. He'd thank me when he got that promotion. He'd see that everything I was doing was out of love. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Elaine. Joel told me about the dinner situation. We need to talk. I turned off my phone without responding. everyone was overreacting. In a few months, when Evan was senior associate and we were finally getting ahead financially, they'd all see that I'd been right all along. Sometimes being the only one with vision was a lonely burden to bear. The birthday party was supposed to be a celebration. Lila had turned 8 the week before, and we were hosting a combined family gathering and friend party at our house. I'd spent all morning decorating, preparing food, and making sure everything was perfect. What I hadn't expected was for it to become the stage for my greatest triumph, and Evan's greatest humiliation. "Aurelia, this looks wonderful," my mother Marjorie said, as she surveyed the backyard decorations. "You've really outdone yourself." "I wanted it to be special for Lila," I replied, though my mind was elsewhere. Martin had texted that morning to say he'd secured the Henderson project for Evan, a major residential development that would finally showcase my husband's talents. The promotion would surely follow. Elaine arrived with Joel and his girlfriend, both of them giving me polite but cool greetings. I could tell Evan had been talking to them about his suspicions, but I didn't care. Today was going to vindicate everything. "Mummy, can I open presents now?" Lila tugged on my dress. "In a little bit, sweetheart. Let's wait for everyone to get here." More friends and family arrived over the next hour. My book club friends, neighbours, Evan's co-workers, and even a few of Lila's school friends with their parents. The backyard was full of conversation and laughter. I waited until everyone had a drink, and the party was in full swing before making my move. "Can I have everyone's attention?" I called out, tapping my wine glass with a fork. "I have a special announcement to make." Evan looked up from where he was helping Lila with her party games, his expression wary. "As many of you know, my wonderful husband Evan has been working incredibly hard at his architecture firm. Well, I'm thrilled to announce that his dedication is finally being recognized." I raised my glass toward him. Evan just landed the Henderson residential project, the biggest contract his firm has gotten this year. There was a round of applause, and Evan smiled awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "But here's the thing," I continued, my voice carrying across the yard. "Sometimes in this world, talent isn't enough. Sometimes you need someone who's willing to go the extra mile, to make the right connections, to ensure that the right people notice what's right in front of them." Joel frowned. "Aurelia, what are you—" "I'm talking about the importance of networking," I laughed, taking another sip of wine. "Of building relationships with decision-makers. Of making sure that when opportunities arise, your family is at the top of the list." Elaine set down her plate. "Aurelia, perhaps we should—" "Oh, I'm not done." I waved her off. "See, while my husband was being his usual modest, humble self, I took it upon myself to cultivate a relationship with Martin Calloway, Evan's boss. And let me tell you, it has paid off in spades." The yard had gone quiet except for the sound of children playing on the other side of the garden. "Evan owes his recent success to my, shall we call it strategic networking?" I winked at my book club friends. Sometimes a woman has to do what a woman has to do to help her family get ahead. "Aurelia, stop." Evan's voice cut through the silence. "Stop what? Stop celebrating your success. Stop acknowledging my role in making it happen." I turned to face our guests. "Ladies, you understand, right? Sometimes our husbands need a little help navigating office politics." My friend Sandra looked uncomfortable. "Maybe we should talk about this privately." "Why? I'm proud of what I've accomplished. Martin Calloway thinks very highly of the Fenwick family now." "Very highly indeed," I giggled. "In fact, I'd say he's become quite invested in our success." "That's enough." Evan stood up, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Oh, come on, honey. Don't be so modest. Everyone here knows how hard it is to get ahead these days. They understand that sometimes you have to be creative in your approach." "Creative how?" Joel asked, his voice tight. "Well, let's just say that Martin and I have developed a very close working relationship. Very close. He's become quite fond of me, and by extension, quite supportive of Evan's career prospects. The silence was deafening. I looked around at the faces staring back at me, shock, disgust, pity, and in Evan's case, pure humiliation. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Elaine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I did what needed to be done." The wine was making me bolder than I should have been. "I'm saying that while Evan was waiting for recognition to fall from the sky, I was making sure it happened. I cultivated a relationship with Martin. I made him see Evan's value. And yes, I may have gone above and beyond what most wives would do, but look at the results." "Above and beyond how?" Sandra asked. "Oh, you know, private meetings, dinners, long conversations about Evan's potential. Martin's become quite appreciative of my insights." I saw Joel pull out his phone and start recording, but I was too caught up in my moment of triumph to care. "The point is, it worked. Evan got the project. He's going to get promoted. Our family is finally going to get the recognition we deserve, and it's all because I was willing to do whatever it took." "Whatever it took," Evan repeated slowly. "That's right. Whatever it took." I emphasized each word. "And frankly, I think a little gratitude would be appropriate instead of all this judgment." Elaine stood up abruptly. "I need to leave." "Oh, come on, Elaine. Don't be such a prude. This is how the world works." "This is how your world works, apparently." She looked at Evan with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, son." As she headed for the gate, other guests began to follow. Within 10 minutes, half the party had left, including most of our friends and all of Evan's family, except Joel. "Mummy," Lila appeared at my side, her small face confused and frightened. "Why is everyone leaving? Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart." I knelt down and hugged her. "The grown-ups are just being silly. Why don't you go play with your new toys?" As Lila wandered off, I turned back to the remaining guests, mostly neighbors who looked like they wanted to escape, but felt too awkward to leave abruptly. "Well," I said, raising my glass again, "I guess we know who our real friends are." Joel approached me, his phone still recording. "Aurelia, do you hear yourself right now?" "I hear someone who fought for her family's future, while everyone else stood around wringing their hands." "You hear someone who just destroyed her marriage in front of 30 people. I laughed. "Don't be so dramatic, Joel. Evan will understand once he calms down." But when I looked for my husband, he was nowhere to be seen. Neither was Lila. "Where did they go?" "Evan took Lila inside," Joel said quietly. "He didn't want her to hear any more of this." "Hear any more of what? The truth about how success really happens?" Joel stopped recording and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Aurelia, you just admitted to having an affair with your husband's boss, in front of your 8-year-old daughter and half the neighborhood, and you're acting like you should get a medal for it." "I never said I was having an affair." "You didn't have to. Everyone here knows exactly what you meant." He shook his head. "I hope it was worth it." As Joel left, I stood alone in my backyard, surrounded by party decorations and abandoned plates of food. The few remaining guests made their excuses and slipped away, leaving me with the cleanup and the growing realization that maybe, just maybe, I'd miscalculated. But no, they were all just too narrow-minded to understand what I'd accomplished. Evan would see reason once the shock wore off. He had to. Inside the house, I could hear him on the phone with someone, his voice low and urgent, probably calling his mother to apologize for my honesty, or maybe calling Martin to thank him for the project. Either way, I'd done what needed to be done, and if people couldn't handle the truth about how the world really worked, that was their problem, not mine. The Monday morning after the party, I was standing in the school parking lot, waiting for Lila, when Sarah from book club approached me. I expected her to apologize for leaving early, maybe make some comment about how people had overreacted to my announcement. Instead, she looked uncomfortable and avoided eye contact. "Hi, Aurelia. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said, confused by her tone. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Well, after Saturday," she trailed off, then seemed to gather her courage. Listen, I think maybe you should know that people are talking. Talking about what? About what you said, about your arrangement with your husband's boss. I felt my cheeks flush. It's not an arrangement, it's networking. Aurelia, honey, that's not what it sounded like. And the video... What video? Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me a clip that Joel had apparently posted to his social media. It was me at the party, wine glass in hand, saying, "Martin's become quite fond of me, and by extension, quite supportive of Evan's career prospects." Joel had no right to post that. "It's already been shared 43 times, Sarah said gently. "Look, I'm not judging you, but maybe you should talk to someone, a counselor or..." "I don't need a counselor. I need people to mind their own business." Sarah stepped back. "Okay, I just thought you should know." As she walked away, I pulled out my own phone and checked social media. The video was everywhere, shared by people I barely knew, commented on by neighbors, former co-workers, even some of Evan's colleagues. The comments were brutal. "This is so embarrassing for her husband. That poor little girl. Imagine being proud of this. Someone should call CPS." I was so absorbed in reading the comments that I almost missed Lila coming out of school. When I looked up, she was standing a few feet away with tears in her eyes. "Mommy, Katie's mum said I can't come to her sleepover anymore." "What? Why?" "She said something about grown-up problems, and Tommy asked me if you really have a boyfriend." My heart sank. "Lila, sweetheart." "Do you have a boyfriend, Mummy? Besides Daddy?" I knelt down to her level, trying to figure out how to explain something I wasn't sure I understood myself. "It's complicated, baby. Sometimes adults have to do things that other people don't understand. But Daddy's been crying." The words hit me like a physical blow. Daddy's been crying. Last night, I heard him in his room, and this morning he made my breakfast, but he looked really sad. I took Lila's hand and led her to the car, my mind racing. At home, I found Evan in his home office, laptop open, papers spread across his desk. "We need to talk," I said. "Do we?" He didn't look up from his work. "Lila says you've been upset." Lila's very observant. "Evan, please, I know Saturday got a little out of hand." "A little out of hand?" He finally looked at me, and I was shocked by what I saw. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Aurelia, you announced to 30 people that you're sleeping with my boss." "I never said I was sleeping with him." "You didn't have to. Everyone understood exactly what you meant." He turned his laptop screen toward me, including my entire office, apparently. The screen showed the company's internal messaging system. There were dozens of messages about the video, ranging from sympathetic comments about Evan to crude jokes about me. "This is what I walked into this morning," Evan said quietly. "My co-workers feeling sorry for me because my wife publicly humiliated me. I was trying to help by telling everyone that my success is because you're fucking my boss." The profanity was so unlike Evan that it stopped me cold. "Even if that were true," he continued, "even if you were just trying to help my career, don't you see what you've done? Every project I get now, every promotion, every success, people will assume it's because of what you're doing with Martin. You've destroyed my professional reputation." "That's not..." "It is." He closed the laptop. "Martin called me this morning." My stomach dropped. "What did he say?" "He said the situation had become untenable and that he thought it would be best if I looked for opportunities elsewhere." "He fired you?" "He suggested I might be happier at another firm. Apparently, your little announcement made things awkward for him too." I felt the room spinning. "But the Henderson project..." "There is no Henderson project, Aurelia. There never was. Martin was just telling you what you wanted to hear." The full weight of what I'd done began to settle on me. I was trying to help. Were you? Or were you trying to justify what you were already doing? Before I could answer, his phone rang. It was his brother. "Joel, what's up?" Evan put the call on speaker. Dude, I hate to tell you this, but the video's gone viral. It's been picked up by some of those relationship drama accounts on social media. There are thousands of comments. I grabbed my phone and searched for the video. Joel was right, it was everywhere, with captions like, "Wife admits to affair to help husband's career," and "Woman destroys marriage at daughter's birthday party." There's more, Joel continued. Mum called her lawyer friend. She thinks you should talk to someone about protecting yourself legally. Legally? I interrupted. What are you talking about? Aurelia, Joel's voice was cold. You admitted on camera to having an affair, in front of witnesses, including your daughter. Evan needs to protect his interests. His interests? Custody, assets, his reputation, what's left of it. After Evan hung up, we sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, I tried one more time. I know this looks bad, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling, we can... Aurelia, do you love me? The question caught me off guard. Of course I do. Then why did you sleep with another man? I told you I was trying to... Do you love me? He asked again. Yes. Then how could you do this to me? How could you humiliate me in front of our friends, our family, our daughter? How could you destroy everything we've built together and then act like you deserve gratitude for it? I didn't have an answer. For the first time since this whole thing started, I couldn't find words to explain or justify what I'd done. I think, Evan said slowly, you need to stay somewhere else for a while, until we figure out what comes next. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to give me space to think, and to give Lila some stability while this dies down. She's my daughter too. She's the daughter you humiliated in front of her friend's parents. She's the daughter who's going to be dealing with the fallout from this at school for months. That night I packed a bag and drove to my mother's house. Marjorie met me at the door, her face a mixture of disappointment and concern. Aurelia, what were you thinking? I was thinking about our family's future. By destroying your family's present. As I lay in my childhood bedroom that night, staring at the ceiling, I tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong. I'd had a plan, I'd been strategic, I'd done what needed to be done. But as I scrolled through the hundreds of comments on the viral video, reading strangers dissect my marriage and my choices, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I'd been wrong about everything. I'd been staying at my mother's house for 2 weeks when the doorbell rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Marjorie was already at work, and I was still in my pajamas, drinking coffee and scrolling through job listings online. Since the video went viral, the medical practice where I worked had restructured my position, a polite way of saying they'd fired me for bringing negative attention to their business. I opened the door to find a young man in a suit holding an official-looking envelope. Aurelia Fenwick? Yes? You've been served. My hands shook as I took the thick packet of papers. The man walked away without another word, leaving me standing in my mother's doorway, staring at documents that would change everything. The first page made it clear Evan was filing for legal separation. But as I flipped through the pages, I realized this wasn't just a simple separation. It was a comprehensive legal action that painted me as an unfit mother and unfaithful wife. There were phone records showing dozens of calls and texts between Martin and me, GPS data from my phone showing visits to his house, screenshots of social media posts where I'd hinted at my networking success, bank records showing expensive dinners and purchases I'd made while supposedly running errands. But the most damaging evidence was the video from Lila's birthday party, along with witness statements from everyone who'd been there. Joel had provided his recording. Sandra from book club had given a statement about my behavior in recent months. Even the receptionist at Evan's office had documented my visits. The custody section was particularly brutal. Evan was requesting primary physical custody of Lila, with supervised visitation for me. The reasoning was laid out in clinical legal language. Mother has demonstrated poor judgment, engaged in behavior detrimental to the minor child's emotional well-being and publicly humiliated the family unit in front of the child. I called Evan immediately. "You bastard," I said when he picked up. "How could you do this to me?" "Good morning, Aurelia. I assume you received the papers." His calm tone infuriated me. "You're trying to take my daughter away from me." "I'm trying to protect my daughter from further trauma. I'm her mother." "You're the mother who announced her affair at her daughter's birthday party. You're the mother whose poor choices got her daughter teased at school and uninvited from sleepovers. That's not my fault. Whose fault is it, Aurelia?" I didn't have an answer for that. "Look," Evan continued, "this doesn't have to be a war. If you're willing to be reasonable, we can work out an arrangement that's fair to everyone." "Reasonable? You're calling supervised visitation reasonable?" "Given your recent behavior, yes." "What recent behavior? I made some mistakes, but—" "You had an affair. You lied about it repeatedly. You humiliated our family publicly. You lost your job because of your poor judgment. And according to Lila's teacher, she's been acting out at school because of the stress at home." "Lila's acting out?" "She got in trouble for hitting another child who teased her about the video. She's been having nightmares. She asked me if Mommy was going to jail." The words hit me like physical blows. I never meant for any of this to hurt her. But it did hurt her. It hurt all of us. And I can't let it continue. I hung up and called a lawyer immediately. The consultation didn't go well. "Mrs. Fenwick," the attorney said after reviewing the papers, "this is a very strong case your husband has built. The evidence is extensive and well documented." "But I'm her mother. Doesn't that count for something?" "Of course it does. But the court's primary concern is the best interest of the child. And your husband has made a compelling argument that your recent actions have not been in your daughter's best interest. So what are my options? You could fight it, but honestly, given the evidence, I'm not sure you'd win. The video alone is quite damaging. Your best bet might be to negotiate for more favorable visitation terms." "What kind of visitation?" "Initially supervised, but with the possibility of working toward unsupervised visits if you complete counseling and demonstrate stability." I left the lawyer's office feeling defeated. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, had backfired completely. Instead of helping my family get ahead, I'd destroyed it. That evening, Martin finally returned one of my calls. "Aurelia, I can't talk long. Linda's in the next room." "Martin, you need to help me. Evan's filed for separation and he's trying to take Lila away from me." "I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see what it has to do with me." "What it has to do with you? Martin, we had a relationship. I sacrificed my marriage for—" "You sacrificed your marriage for your own reasons. I never asked you to do that." "But you said—" "I said a lot of things, but I never promised you anything beyond what we had." "What we had? Is that all it was to you?" "Aurelia, you're a lovely woman, but let's be realistic here. You approached me. You initiated everything. I was just receptive. I approached you to help Evan's career. Did you? Or did you approach me because you were bored in your marriage and wanted some excitement?" The question hung in the air. Deep down, I knew he was right. The career angle had been my justification, but the truth was more complicated. "Either way," Martin continued, "it's over now. I'm sorry things didn't work out for you, but I have my own family to think about." He hung up, leaving me alone with the devastating realization that I'd thrown away my marriage for a man who'd never cared about me at all. 3 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom as a judge reviewed the separation agreement Evan and I had finally negotiated. I would have supervised visitation with Lila twice a week, with the possibility of overnight visits after 6 months of counseling. Evan would keep the house and primary custody. I would keep my car and half of our modest savings account. "Mrs. Fenwick," the judge said, "do you understand the terms of this agreement?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you agree to abide by the conditions regarding counseling and supervised visitation?" "Yes, Your Honor." As I signed the papers, I caught sight of Evan across the courtroom. He looked tired but relieved, Beside him sat Elaine, who'd driven down to support him. They didn't look at me with anger anymore, just with a kind of sad resignation. Outside the courthouse, I tried one last time to talk to Evan. "I know you probably won't believe this," I said, "but I really thought I was helping our family." He studied my face for a long moment. "Maybe you did think that. But Aurelia, even if your motives were good, your methods were destructive. And in the end, motives don't matter as much as consequences. Can we ever get past this?" "I don't know. Right now I'm focused on helping Lila heal from the trauma of the last few months. Maybe someday we can be friends again, for her sake. But the marriage we had, that's over." As he walked away with his mother, I stood alone on the courthouse steps, holding my copy of the separation agreement. Everything I'd thought I was building had crumbled. My marriage was over. My relationship with my daughter was damaged. My reputation was destroyed. And the man I'd sacrificed everything for had discarded me without a second thought. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that everyone else had been right and I had been catastrophically wrong. The thought was almost too painful to bear, but as I watched Evan drive away, probably to pick up Lila from school, probably to try to explain why Mommy wouldn't be coming home, I knew it was the truth. I had destroyed everything good in my life, and I had no one to blame but myself.